If you just joined us, this is International Forum reaching you live from Benin City, Edo State, south side of Nigeria. Today is all about what the attack on Russian warplanes, the implication, the impact in, yes, the peace talk. Remember, like what I said in the opening, as they're trying to go into negotiation, Russia is hitting Ukraine with drones, and Ukraine used 18 months to plan this onslaught. They took their time. And nobody knows what Ukraine do have in store when you talk about the kind of subtle but deadly attack they are planning against Russia. But Russia right now, like a wounded lion, definitely are going to retaliate. So maybe we'll just see more carnage within these two countries. Well, with me here in the studio to talk about this, he is a lecturer in Union, being a political analyst. Join me to welcome Honorable Frank Amigo. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. And joining us virtually in Benin City, he is Honorable Agarasi Idubo, a political analyst, political affairs commentator. Honorable, it's a pleasure to have you join us virtually. Can you hear me?
Much, but my video is not clear.
All right, it's like our technical crew would tell you what to do. I can hear you loud and clear. I think you should just open your video. All right, you can just tap on the video to open it. Then when we get the signal, definitely we'll get back to you ASAP. So, Honorable Frank Amigo, you've seen what Russia and Ukraine are doing to each other. You could see the last footage shown by Ukraine to the world saying, you think we are out, we are still in this war. Let's take a look at that particular move. Do you think it's a smart move or just a move to aggravate the Russian side?
Yeah, I take to the smartness of the Ukraine, what it did is a case of two men fighting, and a third person comes in to try to stop them. One of them still agitating that this fight must continue. And they left them. The next thing, the one shouting that the fight must continue was badly hit in his eyes. And he's not the one calling the arrest, please hold us. I see that playing out. If you don't mind, you can also liken what happened on Sunday to a David-Goliath fight, whereby Goliath outrightly underrated David, and what found out at the end of the day was a total fall of the giant, and his head was cut off. For Ukraine to plan for 18 months, that's a year, 6 months, shows that they have some other plans. And this attack on their base now, or various bases, will indicate to Russia that this peace deal, let's go ahead on time, otherwise we will detonate more, and that detonation might become more aggressively done, and Russia will now be begging US, begging other nations to jointly beg Ukraine to let me go. So Ukraine.
Are you serious about this? You're speaking from the soft side or sentimental side in support of Ukraine.
Yes, because for Ukraine to have masterminded this for the past 18 months, and they kept quiet, thinking Ukraine was being submerged. Now from nowhere they rose up, and even the way they moved their drones into Russia, Russia is still battling to know how that was possible. So that by extrapolation shows that this thing they did now, past 18 months, they would have done so in several other places. And it is a way to forcing Russia to agree on the peace path. Let's stop fighting ourselves. If you insist, though, let the fight begin. You recall in Bible days when Goliath, every day and night, threatening the people of Israel, bring out your champion, let's fight. It took about 30, 40 days. So the people you are going to meet there at night, they have refused to bring out somebody. Maybe, just maybe there was a US then, they would have been begging Goliath, don't worry, leave the Israelites alone. No, 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 I must finish them. If they kill me, we become their slaves. And the reverse becomes the case. And there rose up a David without military training, not even old enough to be enlisted into the Israeli army. And things turned around. And the rest is history. So I see that resurfacing or reincarnating, if you don't mind, in the case between Russia and Ukraine.
All right. All right, let's get straight down to where Honorable Bagara say, Dubois Ace. Honorable, if you can hear me, what do you feel about our onslaught? Some say it's an onslaught. You heard what on the Frank Amigo is talking about. He said it's a case of, it's likened to a case between David and Goliath. Do you think what Ukrainians did to those Russian warplanes, do you think is going to aggravate Russia to go all out against Ukraine?
Yeah, even though I didn't hear him clearly because either my phone has issues or the connectivity has issues. But having said that, I think I agree with him. It's like, I mean, Russia has a superior military, power. But like he said, it's like David and Goliath. What Ukraine has just done sends a very clear signal to Russia that never over-assume, because the assumptions were too high. They just thought that they will demolish Ukraine like a piece of whatever. But Ukraine has proven to them, yes, strategically, like he said, they planned for about a year or 6 months, and they have unleashed a serious mayhem on Russia, because the attack severely damaged strategic airplanes. Russia's most prized airplanes were destroyed. And Russia cannot even understand how, because they thought it was impossible, because those planes, according to them, were put in places where they thought were unreachable. But again, by well cut out plan, strategically, they targeted 5 areas and they hit 4 out of 5. And the 4 areas they hit, they damaged over 41 aircraft in Russia. My belief is that one of Russia's most highly prized aircraft was this. The aircrafts they used for surveillance was also destroyed. So very honestly, I think it's a lot of victory for the so-called underdog. And Russia also will now understand that it's never too right to underrate anybody, because they kept those planes in places where they thought it was impossible. And Ukraine has been using drones, yes, but they were not fast enough. But now they decide to go close to the border between Ukraine and Russia and targeted these things over time, going as far as 4,000 kilometers, even in one case, 5,000 kilometers. So you can imagine the speed of the drones. And of course, drones are controlled remotely, and they could reach and hit targets. So Russia is still in awe how this happened. But again, it has happened. So it has proven that Ukraine has some military power which they have deployed for this purpose.
Thank you so much for your opening comments, that both of you are having this same mindset. But some analysts are saying that this was a foolish move, that might just negate the process of peace, and that might just aggravate Russia to do worse than what they are doing now to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's unfair by any person that is not in the theater of war to lay such a claim against Ukraine. If such an analyst was from Ukraine, he wouldn't speak like that. The level of damage so far meted on Ukraine by Russia, any retaliation at any point by Ukrainians should be applauded, because if President Donald Trump could appeal to the conscience of President Putin for about 2 hours on phone, and he's still reneging, giving some conditionalities which appeared as if one could not meet. So the best option that Ukraine had was to do what they just did. It's just like when you're having a street fight that doesn't have rules. You could bite somebody. Just like someone say, bite day, pinch day, pinch day. We are fighting. So there's no better way, there's no umpire, there's no regulation as to the direction of the war. So in such a case, anything you do to attack your enemies is a welcome development. And I like it on the ground that they are trying to negotiate for a ceasefire. It's a wake-up call for Russia to quickly understand that this ceasefire should be quickly done. Otherwise, by the time the Ukrainians detonate more, about 4 cities or communities were adversely affected. So when the second one will be launched, we wouldn't know the level of damage. So that will quickly wake the Russian president that the earlier we renegotiate this peace deal, the better. So I would agree with that analyst. He is like someone watching a football match on screen, thinking the guy should have just jumped a little bit and head the ball into the net. And this is a player that has been playing for the past 60 minutes. Where would the energy come from? So you can't be watching and be directing whereby you on your own can play. Those that have been adversely hit by the missiles from Russia, I'm sure in Ukraine now they would have been very happy and celebrating it. That what people thought would never ever happen had happened. So they will applaud Zelensky, that we thought he was totally docile, not knowing that he had a plan that for the past 1 year and 6 months, if in the rush of attacks that Russia was into, as the name suggests, they are rushing like Russians. If Zelensky has instructed this event that took place on Sunday to have taken place while Russia was attacking, one would not be able to ascertain the military strength or tactics of the Ukrainians. But now, even when President Putin is not saying anything, thinking, in quotes, nothing spoiled, a lot of things have gone bad. If you say it doesn't matter, I tell you there are dozens of matters in that matter. So I don't think you'll be able to sleep very well. Maybe his abode is the next target.
All right. Now let's get straight down to where Honorable Agarsey Dubois is. Now, what do you feel about the next line? Because we're like saying that the next line might just be devastating, because after that particular onslaught, so to speak, right now by the Ukrainians, the Russians didn't even flinch. They are saying that their resolve is their resolve. They gave 5 conditions. 1, the Donetsk region, the Luhansk region, must be identified by the world as a region of their own. The local language, or what I say, the general accepted language, must be Russia. And 2, Ukraine also must demilitarize, reducing the number of military personnel that they have, and there will be peace. The Crimea region, they should forget about it. Those 4 regions that Russians have occupied, Ukraine should forget about it. Now, do you think that Ukraine will accept this?
You see, Wilson,
Yes.
I must confess to you, I'm not even hearing anything. But
Wow.
I am sure we can. I don't know how to respond to what you have just said now, because
Okay, let me ask the question again. All right, I'm talking about the conditions given by Russia to Ukraine for there to be a ceasefire vis-a-vis an end to the war. Do you feel that Ukraine will accept such conditions?
can I ask you to allow me go and take my earphone, because I'm not even hearing you. Let me go and take my earphone.
Sure, okay, fine. Go get your earpiece. So
that's good.
talk about the conditions. Now, do you feel that Ukraine will accept it?
Yes, those conditions given by Russia before Sunday were given without envisaging that Ukraine could do what it did on Sunday. If, as it is now, Ukraine has launched its attack, those 5 conditionalities they gave before, I tell you for free, they would have reduced to 3 or 2. They did that oppressively, thinking Ukraine will bow down to anything they will say. By that, underrating Ukraine, that anything will say they will do, any directive given to them, they will comply. But that will not be anymore. Not be anymore. So one can be, just like in wrestling, you can slam somebody on the floor, you sit on him and be hitting him. Before that was happening, the one that is under will suddenly regain strength and topple him over, and that's the exact case that is happening now. You can those 5 conditions, they have no relevance right now. That you must ensure that things work in the right perspective. You can't anymore. If you're able to feed a child from childhood, and now that child has grown to an adult, you want to give instructions as you used to when that person was like 5, 6 years old. You can't stand anymore. If you threaten your 20-year-old child that I won't feed you anymore, and that 20-year-old child is now working, gainfully employed, that threat will not hold anymore.
All right. You just don't want to go for a break. When we return, we'll continue with this discussion. Don't go away. All right, if you just joined us, this is International Forum taking a look at the peace talk between Russia and Ukraine. But before they went for that peace talk, Ukraine to some did something extremely stupid or extremely brave. Depends on the side of the divide you are like having this affiliation for. Some are saying it was a brave move, a smart move, an unexpected move. Others are saying you just made the situation worse. If you talk about the number of drones, Russia, they have more drones. Talk about the number of targets, Russia, they have more targets. You're just making Russia to beef up security around their, close to heart installations vis-a-vis military hardwares. Well, I see Honorable Frank Amigo, and of course able to re-establish contact with Honorable Gary saying do but visually get to hear his own point of view. But still on this matter, being a smart move and of course a foolish move in terms of hardware, you can't compare the might of Ukraine and Russia. In terms of overview of a particular country, you cannot compare the eyesight, they call it the ego sight of Russia and Ukraine. In terms of military hardware, you cannot compare both. I think this action will make Russia really angry. Well, let's get to hear from Honorable Garasi Idubo. The conditions given by Russia to Ukraine to ensure peace vis-a-vis the 4 eastern parts of Ukraine, the Luhansk, the Donetsk region, must be left to be independent. The language must be Russian. Of course, Ukraine should disband their military. Do you think Ukraine will agree to these conditions?
Yeah, very honestly, I think Russia should have a rethink. They should not just be talking like they're giving instructions to a lame duck. Ukraine has proven to Russia by this attack on Sunday that, look, excuse me, you are our senior brothers, but don't take us for granted. I think those conditions must be reviewed, all with a view to understanding that, hey, man, we also have strength to fight back, even though you are superior, but we have also proven to you that we have what it takes to fight back. So I want to think if Ukraine does not feel disposed to do that, they can renegotiate and say, sorry, excuse me, let us go back and renegotiate. I think with what Ukraine has just done, Russia too may not be on the hard line to say we must enforce this demand. I believe that Russia will also tell themselves that if these guys refuse to accede to our request and we push too hard, something also can happen. So I think Russia will also have a thing and they will go back to renegotiate. Now Ukraine can also say, okay, fine, see what we want to do. See our own proposal. So you also look at it If it's comfortable, fine. If it's not, then let us do to your tent to Israel, and let us keep fighting. But I think what Ukraine has done now, because most of the aircrafts destroyed by those drones, some analysts say they are even impossible to repair because they are no more in production. So if they are difficult to repair, it means that Russia's might has been depleted. The kind of power they used to, exercise by this action of Ukraine, to my mind, has been depleted. So they will not go ahead to start to think that they can force everybody. They are big brothers, that's true. But a big brother must also understand that a small brother is growing and could be tough. So I think they will need to sit down again and renegotiate and find a middle course. So that at the end of the day, I've always believed that there is no alternative to peace, nothing. No matter how much you fight, to kill everybody, at the last point, you must sit down to negotiate. I've always believed that in my life. There's no alternative to peace. Now that they're still fighting, I think they should end it now and agree on what to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Agar Seidubo. You heard me said there might just be a table for renegotiation, but Russia are not talking anything about renegotiating. Remember also, when they are having this talk, that was 2 days after the strike, Russia, they are still very much adamant. And they are saying what they are talking about is what they really mean, and they're going to stick to it. Ukraine is asking for 30 days ceasefire. Russia is saying no way until you agree to our demands. Then we can consider your 30-day ceasefire. After they tried at first, it did not work. Do you see Russia bending after this particular attack to agree to Ukraine's deal of a 30-day ceasefire? Or people are saying this might just be the highest or the toughest that Ukrainians can do to Russia?
It can be the toughest. I'm sure by now Russia is traumatized. Maybe now they're in coma. Russia, to me, has been demystified by a small country called Ukraine. In other words, Russia has been so overhyped from what I'm saying. So all those conditionalities they gave before now, I agree with my Honorable Idobo that we have to review those things. Those conditionalities were given on the ground that Ukraine will be able to do anything. But now we have seen what Ukraine can do, and maybe much more devastating things. So those conditionalities will no longer hold. It's better to come back to a renegotiation table and spread things out and understand ourselves between Russia and Ukraine on the way forward. So Russia, in an attempt to realize the military might or intelligence, more of intelligence, that Ukraine is capable of, the earlier they understand that right now, the better for them. Let it not be that the full story of David and Goliath, you don't have to wait until the head of Goliath is cut off. Can this also spare doom for the nation of Russia? Can this one bring an end to it? It's possible. If they could plan, Ukraine planned for a year and 6 months to unleash this terror on Russia, it is very likely that more of these plans are underway. They're just waiting for one or two things to happen. They'll detonate. And once that happens, it has happened first. If it does happen second, third time, there'll be no Russia anymore. Because the things you are boasting of, the shield of Goliath, the spear of Goliath, were of no consequence after one stone hit the forehead of Goliath. This is just one stone now. And David had 5 stones. But one stone brought Goliath down. So this first detonation would have brought Russia to his knees. But if they wait for Ukraine to launch another attack, there'll be no more Russia. Because what you want to fight with...
Why would you say there'll be no more Russia?
Because their boasting is in their weapons. And these weapons that they are boasting of are being destroyed. So what are they going to fight with? It's just like somebody fighting, holding a knife against his opponent. By the time that knife falls off his hands, his strength will almost be gone, because that was what what representative relied upon. So your reliance now has been destroyed. So as it was also mentioned now, that those facilities destroyed now may not find easy replacement. And those are the things they were hanging on by Russia, that they will finish Ukraine. And those things that we used to finish Ukraine have been finished. So as we say,
if you say have been finished, it may not be fair. Because out of 120, they were able to hit just 40 or thereabouts.
That's significant. That's significant.
But they say have 80. They're fully operational, fully functional. Don't forget that Russia have this air power. They have the air might. Ukraine right now cannot fly planes even in Ukraine because of the antecedents of Russia. All they're doing right now is just they're trying to be able to take out just 40 out of 120. And we have orders. Do you think this overhype right now, this particular act of Ukraine, don't you think Ukraine will suffer for this?
They won't do anything. Ukraine won't suffer.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let me go to Honorable Guy and say you do. But Honorable, we're talking about the retaliation, because whether you believe it or not, Russia definitely is going to retaliate. And some are saying, yes, Ukraine right now, they are happy. Out of 120 from their own count, they're able to destroy 40. We still have 80 intact and others that they cannot account for. I don't think it's going to be air raids against Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine.
No, Russia has already retaliated. I mean, on Monday yesterday, they also tried to do some things. But let me say this very clearly. The operation on Sunday demonstrates Ukraine's ability. It's a great ability to launch sophisticated, weapons. And it was a very coordinated attempt. If you say they were planning for 12 or 18 months, and they succeeded to take these drones near their borders, they did not just destroy 40 aircrafts. They destroyed 40 of the main aircrafts. The other 80 are still there, but they destroyed 40 of the real aircrafts. The ones they use for surveillance, the ones they use for to ward off, those attacks. The one that even they said is the most highly prized aircraft that Moscow ever has. So if they had that one and it's been destroyed, that's the one I hear they have been using to terrorize the people in Ukraine. The other 80, yes, they're there, but they are not, to my mind, as sophisticated as the 40 that were either damaged or destroyed. So to my mind, I think Russia has to have a rethink. The earlier demand, to my mind, because this audacious and very daring attack. One of my friends used to say to me, if you wake up in the morning and you see a cock pursuing you, just go back to sleep. Because you don't understand what the cock is all about. Just go back to sleep.
Oh, man.
Because what Ukraine has done now, Russia must just go back to the drawing board. They cannot just wake up and say they want to. A reprisal may not be the solution. They must go back and rethink and say, what do we do? Do we continue? Because like my brother said in the studio, this might just be one. God has a way to help, in Benin, that is only God that can drive away flies for the cow that has no tail. Because the cow uses his tail to drive away flies. But if the cow doesn't have tail and there are flies, God has a way of driving the flies. So I think this is one way for God to prove to Russia that they are not infinite. They're not infinite. They thought, oh, nobody can. Now they now understand that somebody can do something to prove something.
Oh, wow.
Ukraine has done something to prove something, and that something is to Russia like a mystery. They're just wondering that, like my friend said, they're in comatose. They're just wondering how. And because of the distances of the air bases, they didn't think it was possible for any person or any group of persons to attack those formations. But again, they forget that Ukraine was part of Russia, was part of the USSR, and Russia and Ukraine they are blood related. So Ukraine understands where those things are, and they set up a machinery to attack based on knowledge, and the knowledge is still there. So they took time because they were also part of the same country before to understand that this is where to go. Like my brother said, David had 5 stones in his bag and used only one. The other 4 are still there.
But do you think that Ukraine have these 5 stones? Anyway, we want to go for a break. We'll return. We'll come back to conclude the discussion. Don't go away. We will be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. We're about to commence our descent on this particular discussions. Yes, you opine that there might just be other plans because you're liking it to David and Goliath. David having 5 stones, he threw the first one, and that was what did the damage. But in this case, we don't know if they have other plans. The Russians don't know if Ukrainians if they have other plans. But I believe in one thing, maybe, just maybe according to point to it, there might just be for security around the installation. Do you see Russia doing this?
They've had security all this while. It's just like if we were to joke over it, that once upon a time, Ukraine would launch an attack, they will invade Russia without the detection of Russian facilities, and they will bring down their best 4 aircraft. Nobody will believe it. The same way a lot of people will not believe that this marks the beginning of Russia, the beginning of the end of Russia. The things you were hoping to use to kill your enemies, those things are being destroyed. So you can't be with your bare hands and go and fight Ukraine anymore. Well, they want to have a reprisal attack, and those other aircrafts are destroyed. That's the end. So I don't think it would be wise for Russia to, in a hurry, launch an attack on Ukraine. It will be most unfortunate because you save the best for the last. A quick reprisal attack now will mean that Russia is confused. Because if, as it came suddenly on Sunday, would you think that on our way to fighting Ukraine, to fighting them at this very point, will mean that they have other plans that they will launch more aggravating than what they just did on Sunday? So they have to go back to the thinking room and work out ways and means whether we are going to do anything more than this or not. Just like as we are agreeing now, I'm sure Wilsons are agreeing with me.
I'm not agreeing to it. I'm asking the question.
The 5 conditions given by Russia to Ukraine for a ceasefire, one of the ways in which Ukraine is telling Russia that we cannot abide by the 5 was this attack. If you're going to catch a kind of a bird, a chicken, the chicken will want to fight back with his claws. So Ukraine is telling Russia, it get as a deal, if you don't mind. So Russia didn't believe it. It's in that disbelief that it detonated now. So Russia should still be weeping. If Ukraine, as small as it is able to bring down Russia, it will be most unfortunate for Russia. Let it be that Russia and US fighting, Then US brought Russia down. That's a good story. Not Ukraine.
Okay. All right. Honorable Sayyidu, I know you are still very much around. 5 conditions given. Honorable Frank Amigo says the attack is a way of Ukraine telling Russia to please reduce the 5 conditions, maybe to 4 or 3 or even 2. Do you think that will have any impact? Do you think Russia will change their mind because of that particular onslaught that took place on Sunday?
No, my dear, it's not a question of whether they are willing. At times you are forced against your will. It's not a question of, it will be, it's not a voluntary action. It could be an involuntary action. It's whether they are willing or not. Now they are faced with a challenge. They are faced with a challenge because this attack has been described as a stunning success for the Ukraine's special services. They say it's a success for them. And if that is the case, I don't see Russia brazen up to say they want to go and fight back because their strategic bombers and surveillance planes have been damaged. Some even destroyed. So those things that they used to do surveillance with are no more there. And no spare parts to fix them now because they are no more in production. So for me, I don't think they will hold on to that demand now that they have this facing them. So if they think that they can hold on to that demand, then I'm sure they're living in a dream world. Because since this significant attack, I'm sure Russia will have a rethink. Because you never can tell, Ukraine could have a longer range. Their weapons are longer range than what anybody expected. Because it went deep into the heart of the country of Russia. And that, to my mind, might just be one of those things that can still happen. So I think Russia should go back to the drawing board, sit down. Okay, my younger brother, I didn't know you are stuff at this, but let's sit down and talk. You are a stupid boy. And Ukraine has always been acknowledged as having military power. I don't know if you know that. Ukraine has always been acknowledged as one of these countries with strong military prowess. I don't know if anybody knows that, but basically, I think we must now, it has not come to the fore that yes, what people used to say that they have shown. Because if you attack Russia in that manner with their superior air power, then of course, Russia must sit down and say, you stupid younger brother, let's sit down and talk. Even out of pretense, because they may not concede, but they might just stylishly concede and say, let's go, let's talk. And
all right.
Pack each other's back.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Sayyidu, and that is your last line on this particular discussion because of time factor. Briefly, Honorable Frank Amigo, you know the effect, will I say the law, or will I say the caution or conditions given to Ukraine not to use long-range missiles still very much in effect? Do you see Ukraine breaking that particular truce if Russia refuses their condition?
Ukraine is so much celebrated now. They were successful. They used Operation Spider's Web, covered up everywhere, traditionally hit at Russia. They might comply with the non-use of long-range missiles. But I'm still very much agreeing with Ukraine that they still have much more than they did on Sunday. Never to be underrated. That's the worst thing in a fight, to underrate your opponent. You wouldn't know whether the person you want to fight was the person that trained your coach. And I like the direction of the fight. Russia should quickly go to Istanbul, beckon on Ukraine. I've been sitting down here since I come. Let's talk, I beg.
I feel Russia will do that.
They'll be forced.
All right, thank you.
To do that.
Thank you so much, Honorable Frank Amigo. Of course, a big thanks also to Honorable Agara Sayyidu. Well, you've heard them tit for tat. Yes, some are saying it was a successful Operation Spider Web. Others are saying it was a foolish move that this is going to, in a large extent, aggravate Russia, aggressiveness against Ukraine. And of course, the talk for the 30-day ceasefire might just be off the table. There'll be no end in sight for the now when you talk about this war. Let's see how all this will pan out. Once more, appreciate both of you. We'll do it again next week Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.